Good afternoon, George. Welcome to this week's Internet Weather. It's been a while we did the Internet Weather. Let's take a look at what's interesting port and what actually in store. Maybe we can have some discussion about this specific port we picked for this week. The port I picked is for 17,000 TCP. The reason I picked up, this is one of the very low volume ports, but I never seen this port come up this high actually with respect to our internet traffic. What's on this port? 17,000 TCP is typically used by some of Kaspersky antivirus proxy networks for some proxy networking. And also it's used by one of the Oracle products, Oracle 10 times product, which is I think kind of management level product to monitor different networks within the Oracle network. There has been a proof of concept, not a proof of concept. There was an exploit, I think, a couple of years ago, which was a big deal. I think at the time there was an update provided by various vendors how to do actually rectify it. But one of the reasons it piqued my interest is this is also one of the ports used by HAK Vision devices. They're kind of some of NVIDIA, DVR kind, and also they are more into surveillance type of devices. And they typically use this specific port for, I think, streaming purposes, like streaming in, streaming out, basically, whether it could be images, it could be videos. For that, it's heavily used by HAK Vision-based devices. That being said, to start with, basically, this is the view from our 90 days view from our common backbone. As you can see, the activity was a little bit spiky in the past 60 days or so, but end of May timeframe, actually, it kind of picked up, right? I think around this time, actually, I started looking at it. At the time, there were just scans and nothing more we could specifically attribute it. But after a week or so, actually, it kind of doubled up again in the second week of June. But starting sometime last week, actually, it kind of went a little bit higher than what spikes we are seeing it. And again, you see the trend line, it kind of slowed down for a little bit last week. And again, I believe, again, it picked up again. But not as pronounced as around 6:15, around midweeks of June. But as you can see, this trend seems to be picking up and their scans going up as well. Even though I've shown 90 days here, I looked at the 365 days view also. The views are pretty much actually last 60 days of view, like a very flat line and then basically peaked up.
I would bet more that this is the Hikvision products that are being scanned than McAfee or even the Oracle. Yeah, they're not the easiest things to update, so and if you're saying they use 17,000 mainly as a kind of like a streaming port.
Yes, I think when we're looking at the document, I think it's not straightforward, but it's buried in one of their manuals for Hikvision. They use the 17,000 TCP for some sort of streaming in and out of the, I think they call it zones. I believe zones are basically like a user consumer zone in and out. Probably if someone is remote, you want to access, right? For example, you said you have a Hikvision device, but you want to see, probably you jump onto an app and see what's happening, right? I think that connectivity is done through this port.
Okay.
That's my understanding, but I could be wrong. But with the little explanation, I think that's what it is.
Okay, yeah. So if you have an app and you want to remotely watch your cameras, you can log into the app, and then you can view it. So this is transmitting to your app from the cloud, from whatever Hikvision's cloud is.
I think that's what we can say. I think this is basically kind of port forwarding. This port will be used probably for port forwarding. Yeah.
It's interesting that the dates, I mean, what I think it could be is maybe there's a lot of scanning on those ports now. Maybe they're trying to intercept some of that traffic because people are maybe going on vacation now in the summer. Maybe they feel like people will be using these apps more frequently. And they're trying to see if maybe these scanners are trying to intercept some kind of traffic to see if they can get credentials or maybe even pull whatever streams are coming from it. It's interesting.
Yeah, also we have seen in the past these devices, right? NVR, DVR kind of devices are prime targets for all these hackers.
Yeah.
We have seen Hikvision and others also basically in the same realm, basically looking and scanning for different ways, right? Even Mirai-based botnets. And actually, any of the IoT botnet, probably they will have some sort of NVR, DVR kind of capability, basically looking for those devices.
And, having experience with this specific Hikvision, I had an NVR, having experience with that, you have all the options you need in the management console to shut off remote administration. Everything is there, but they make it enticing for you to activate it all because, there's like a radio button you click and they're like, if you want to activate this in the cloud remotely, just click this button and take this URL, put it into your phone, and you can view your cameras from anywhere in the world. And that uses UPnP. So that just punches holes in your firewall that allows traffic to flow in and out, which could leave you open to an attack if you're not patched. And that specific product does not make it easy for you to update the firmware. You have to go through a few steps. You have to find the settings and then see what version you're at. They've gotten really good with security, but again, people don't tend to update these things, so it's possible that they're trying to jump in from a vulnerable port.
And it's not easy for average user to basically go into it. Even
it's not. Yeah,
sometimes you and I and any person who wants to go and update, there are no clear-cut instructions.
I spent a significant amount of time bypassing the UPnP and setting up like a VPN access. I spent way too much time doing that. It was actually frustrating. They got it to work, but any other I was about ready to give up and just not access it remotely, but they make it simple, with the URL. So I see why a lot of people are attracted to that. So this is definitely could be bot looking around for vulnerable boxes. Yeah.
And basically here we see in the volume on this specific port, right? In the next graph, basically it looks similar. In this case, we are looking at the scan volume. If you look at the previous graph and this graph, only difference you're seeing is a change in basically in the title, right? Scan activity versus flow activity. But the graph almost looks similar. I can take this graph and put it back. What does it say? It basically says whatever the traffic we are seeing, it's all related to scanning.
Okay.
So because of because of the reason, the whole graph looks like same.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I think next moving on to looking at the scan shifts. So basically, how many unique scanners, right? How many scanners basically trying to perform scanning activity for this specific port. The y-axis is the number, how many scanners are involved. If you look at usual traffic is less than 20, right? It's between 0 and 20, right? Let's say at midpoint, it was around 10 to 15 at the max. But if you look at the spikes, they happen certain times of the month. But at its peak, it's less than 280. I think at the max, it's spiked around 270. And that basically is some sort of scanners coming up, performing the scan and going away. But one interesting fact is it's not actually consistent. Like, for example, in the previous ThreatTraqs, maybe internet weather, when we see some sort of diurnal pattern. For example, there's the scanning happen over the weekend, and you don't see that big spike scanning happening for the next week or so. They could be set in trend, but in this case, there is nothing. You have some scanning, like a huge scanning happened in some time in April timeframe, like more or less the consistency with the first 3 to 4 spikes, right? And again, you did not see anything until start of May, maybe, and something like that. But when you come back to June, actually, we kind of seeing similar repeated thing like in April, but again, it's not consistency. The diurnal pattern is not there, but there are spikes. I think one thing we could see is there's automated passion scanning is happening,
Oh, right.
and it's going up. So these are about the scans. It's on this one. And the next graph, basically, yeah, let's see. Basically, we said that the peak it was around 270 IPs, right?
Mhm.
So in one of the reports, basically, which has highest number of IPs, and also actually the threshold also much above the usual norm. In this case, actually, it's saying 216 addresses. It kind of wedges us with the graph we have, right? But when you put then all this in the geographical IP map, it's a heat map. That's why you're only seeing the dots. You're not seeing all the 269 addresses, but the concentration of those addresses block. So if you look around, basically this part just above the China Asia Pac region, actually this seems to be from Mongolian region. It's not that often we see any IPs coming from Mongolian IPs region. So that's one anomaly. And actually, the specific IP block, some of the IP blocks, not specifically the whole IP block, some of the addresses in those IP blocks in the past associated with malicious active, but not recent. But if you put together all these things, scanning happening from Mongolian region, and these devices are most popular in Asia Pac as well as probably rebranded devices within North American region. Like you said, it's a possibility. It's a kind of a new activity. Someone is looking for vulnerable devices with the high key vision devices, as well as maybe some Oracle times 10 devices also, probably building their new botnet for some nefarious activity. And that's the reason I think we are seeing increased activity, and slowly it's actually ramping up.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Hikvision is a brand from China, and it's very difficult to buy that in the US, but they also, I think, sub license their hardware to bigger US vendors that are more available. So it's
Gotcha.
makes perfect sense that they'd be scanning to try to find it. The timing is interesting. I know we will never know why, but it would be interesting to know those peaks. Why in the month of June and some in May. Maybe there's a vulnerability that's not patched that they know about that will be patched, or that was patched, but they know people are not going to patch it, so they go right after it to grab low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
think if we can get maybe a little bit deeper into what it is, probably if we get more information, maybe by deeper analysis, we could come up with some more theories. But at this point of time, it looks like scanning happening for devices.
agreed.
And and this is basically leveraging the Shodan's power of basically scanning for internet connected devices, right?
Yeah.
Here, basically looking for the port 17,000 TCP in Shodan. And once you do the Shodan, there is one feature called facet analysis, what gives you the breakdown of the top 10. Basically, it shows you the top 10, but there are about more than top 10.
Right.
But top 10 kind of gives you the certain view, how the distribution, any specific devices, and maybe specific concentrations or geographic regions are concentrated. But for our analysis, I picked up the product distribution, which gives you some idea. The reason I picked is basically, while I was looking, there was some reference to Hikvision camera devices, right?
Yeah.
And when I was look at the second position. The second position basically says it's related to Hikvision-based cameras. I discount OpenSS in the sense probably most of the scanners, when you're looking like you're doing a blast scanning, right? Massive scanning, you basically scan all the ports.
Right.
Probably on
right.
probably on the 17,000 TCP, they're looking for OpenSSH. But in reality, if you discount that fact, the second position is most important one.
I agree. Yeah, because it's very
So
targeted. I mean, that's a very targeted product that they're looking for there.
yeah, and also in the same venue, if we talk, it's IoT, right? If we take over the Hikvision and the superset, basically Hikvision is part of IoT-based devices. So if we expand that sphere a little bit, look at number 4, basically Plex. So Plex is basically again some sort of DVR, home DVR. So open source one, people used to use it.
Yep.
So and also as you go down the list, there is also KB Vision DVR. Actually, there are also huge list in the huge list, not many, but still I see lots of variations of some sort of DVR or camera, IP camera, stuff like that. So in the sense, I think it's kind of driving the point what we initially said, that it's probably looking for some IoT DVR, especially for Hikvision based. From the showdown analysis also, we can reinforce the fact in addition to what we are observed from our common backbone, port views.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's showing it right here. I mean, yeah, Hikvision's number 2. So I think that's where those scans are pointing.
Yeah. And I think, George, you kind of talked a little bit about how to maybe how to upgrade and stuff like that. But as a passing remarks, what should we do, like in the products like this, looking for updates? What were some recommendations you can tell me?
I would say, because every product works a little differently with their update process. Log into the management console of whatever DVR you have or NVR, and go to the settings. There's got to be a settings or update tab somewhere, or security tab, and it'll say what version you're on, and it usually gives you the update path. Like if it says upload update here, the ones that require you to go to the site and download the update file, those are the hardest ones and the most annoying to deal with, because that means you have to go to the manufacturer's website, look for your model number, right? I mean, your DVR is probably buried under 500 other things, so you got to lift it up, look for your serial number, right? Blow the dust away. Write that process down at least, because you don't want to do, or just take pictures of the label, right? That's what I've done. Take pictures of the label that has your model, your serial, and go and get the latest update.
Actually, that's a very good tip. Sorry to interrupt you. The reason, because whatever the stickers or the serial numbers on the back or wherever on the product, they're hard to see. Yeah. But once you take the picture, you can zoom in, zoom out, right? Basically, that's a very good tip, Josh.
Yeah, that's what I've had to do. And one time I lost my password, and I give props to Hikvision for this, because I lost my admin password to the device. And mind you, it was not connected at all to their cloud servers. It was all local. They would not give me instructions on how to reset that local password without doing a form of private public key exchange with them. So they made me give them my serial number, and I can't remember exactly the process, but it was pretty solid. Like, it was something that, okay, they take it seriously, they take their product access.
That's good to know.
Yeah. But the update process, it's not so straightforward. And with Hikvision, in the US, you can only buy their products through an authorized dealer. So you may even have to, if you had it professionally installed, you may have to get in touch with whoever installed it, which could be another headache, right? If this happened years ago. But I was not able to update my NVR because it wasn't installed by a professional installer. I bought the products myself. But they gave me instructions on how to keep the ports closed and keep it off the internet. So I would say the hardest part could be going to the website, downloading the firmware, and then uploading it to the device. In Hikvision's case, you can go to your installer. They'll probably be able to do it, or you can actually do it yourself. You can figure it out. But I want to point out Plex here, on VNC also, but Plex mainly. It's still around. It's still used, but years ago it was used more, right? Because years ago you had a Plex account, you can share it with your buddies, right, who don't live with you, or friend or family.
Yeah.
You give them the link to access your Plex server, and they can see everything that's on your server related to Plex, right? So they can watch movies from your server.
Right.
And since everything went to streaming, and nobody's really downloading movies, so to speak, anymore. They are, but the majority of people are just streaming from Netflix and all these other online brands. And people left their Plex servers on, probably not even realizing that they're
that's
open.
true.
So if you have Plex, then and you're not really using it, or even if you are, just make sure that it's either shut down or you're not exposing yourself to the internet. Because they're clearly looking for Plex, they're clearly looking for machines that are open to put them on a bot, and and the main thing here is, all right, what are they going to do if they take over your machine? You may have pictures on there and videos that you do not want to lose, or files or data. If you're not concerned about people accessing your network, if it's not a big deal to you, that you may have something on there that is of value. So you don't want to lose any of that. So for that sake,
and also other side,
it.
other little bit of spin to what you said. Probably that Flex servers can be used for malicious purposes. Probably for crypto mining. Maybe they can be used to DDoSing, someone else.
Right.
So without knowing, unknowingly, someone will become part of that malicious campaign. So yeah, these are all very good points. I think in addition to disabling maybe UPnP access as much as possible, not only for Hikviz and any of these internet connected devices, right?
Yeah.
So because that kind of opens a basically port in the firewall, like port forwarding. Yeah, and also maybe probably like some sort of network segmentation, and also maybe the one of the most important things I wanted to mention before. But I think if somebody is running any of these IoT device, try to having a complex password. As soon as they turn up the device, try to change the password, admin/root, whatever it is called, and also the regular user passwords also should be as complex as possible and easier to remember, like a fast phrase.
And to give Hikvision a little credit in that department, I was surprised when and this was maybe 5 years ago, I purchased it. As soon as I turned on the box for the first time, the first thing that popped up on my screen was create a new admin password. Nice. So there was no default password. They wanted you to generate an admin password right then and there. And then I believe there was a recommendation to create a local password that's not as powerful as admin to do some other kind of, but they did, it didn't just let me in with admin. It said you cannot move past this unless you create a strong administrative password. To the point where it was so strong that I forgot it. And I had to go through a crazy process with Hikvision's support team, which was great because that shows you that, they're concerned, about security. But at the same time, people want convenience, so they'll make that password simple. And I'll say this, if you're worried about a password being maybe like if you don't know how to generate a difficult password, at least for the moment, for the temporary time where you're creating it, just make it long. Even if it's simple, make it long. Make it a sentence instead of a password. So use the maximum amount of characters that you can, that they let you use. Again, change it eventually to something somewhat complex, but at least make it long. Don't put like summer is great. Do like the summer of 2024 will be amazing. It's cheesy, but we're not even at 24. Don't ask me why I chose that, but something long like that, at least that'll protect you for the time being until you can create something a little more complex, because it will take them time to break that password if it's long enough, right?
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, George. I see you're already looking for summer 2024.
Okay, I don't know why I'm pushing my life ahead 2 years, but but yeah, this is great, Ganesh. This is a great analysis, and it kind of came full circle when we saw the Shodan results. So thank you. Oh, and another quick thing, if you're curious about Shodan that Ganesh just popped up on here, get your external IP, right? So go on Google and just type what's my IP, and plug that into Shodan and see what pops up. Let Shodan do a scan of that IP and see what happens. See if you have anything that's currently exposed. It might be worth a shot. And familiarize yourself with Shodan if you're not already familiar. I feel like people watching this probably have been to Shodan, but if not, it's a nice way to learn how to play with it a little.
Yeah. I mean, there are two versions, just saying a free version and basically a paid version, like any other products and offerings. But I think even the free version
is good
versatile.
enough. Yeah. If you're not doing API calls to it or serious analysis like you were doing here, you can get a good idea of how it works and learn a little something.
I agree.